What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you stopping by, spending a few minutes of your time here with me tonight. Now, I had a trader ask me a question in the comments of my last video, and I appreciate that question. The question was, how do we know when the high of the day or the low of the day, etc., is locked in place? How do we know when the high or the low is locked in place? That's a very good question, bro. And Stacy has a playlist that's dedicated to this. Okay, it's called Mastering Peak Formations. So I suggest that if you're having these questions, go and watch that playlist. It's a short playlist, so you can get through it in just a couple of days, right? But I want to touch on this subject. The framing of the question can be misleading, right? We say, how do we know when the high or the low is locked in place? Well, we don't know, okay? Before it happens, we don't know. We want to eliminate guesswork from our trading strategy, okay? We don't want to be sitting at our computers guessing. Okay, now I think I'm betting that the high of the day is locked in place, right? We're not predicting anything. The only time we know that the high is being locked in place is when the high is locked in place, right? And that's what I'm going to show you with these slides tonight. We're going to talk about this a little bit, all right? So here you can see that I've marked off a few things, all right? This little, you know, pseudo trend line here, okay? This entire time right here, you can see every day, okay? And the way that the market is moving, we keep making higher highs, right? We're in an uptrend. So as long as we're making higher highs, we know that the high has not been locked in place yet, right? Doesn't that make sense? If we're still going higher, then the high isn't locked in place. Now, when we get here to Wednesday, right, we put in this peak formation in the New York session. The following day in the Tokyo session and pre-Tokyo, we drop down here, okay? Now, this whole time, if you're looking, right, we have this low, these lows, this low, this low, this low, these lows, and that whole time, none of those lows have been broken. Okay. If you do a basic search on YouTube about market structure, the YouTube gurus are going to educate you on the idea of higher highs and lower lows, right? How to identify an uptrend or a downtrend. Okay. Now, in an uptrend, it's a series, right, of higher highs and higher lows. The higher highs are considered weak highs because on the way up, we are going to break through those highs, right? They get broken. So we call them weak. Okay. Also, we call them weak because after we put in that higher high and pull back, it does not break one of these levels, right? So because it doesn't break the last swing low, it's considered weak. And the lower lows in an uptrend, or sorry, the higher lows in an uptrend are considered strong lows. That's primarily because on the way up, these lows are not broken, and they are also the lows that are responsible for the next push that breaks the previous structural high. Okay. So we have in an uptrend, weak highs and strong lows. And in a downtrend, okay, we have strong highs and weak lows. So we continue to make higher highs and higher lows in this uptrend. Tokyo drops down and breaks through these lows up here. Right, comes back into this level. This is a lower low on the inside because it's broken these lows, right? We break this London low over here, put in this lower low on the inside, right? So when that happens, that could be a clue, okay, that something is coming, all right? That lower low, that's the gift, right? That's what Stacy says. It's the gift. That's the market potentially showing its hand, telling us what direction it wants to go in. And we can see. that Thursday grinds up back into that high of the week level, goes up there, but fails to make a new high. Okay. So remember, we're supposed to be making new highs if we're in an uptrend. But here in the New York session, we fail to do so. Okay. And then we start to drop. Bam. We get a huge engulfment candle right here. That's our first clue that we may be locking in the high, right? The high of the week. Okay. Bam. We get that big engulfment. Now, right here, when we break that lower low, that is when we can say that we know that the high is being locked in place, all right? Because we've broken these significant levels to the downside. Now we're not putting in higher highs and higher lows. We're putting in, okay, a lower high, a lower low, right? That's what's going on here when we break this lower low on the inside, right? We're going even lower. That should not happen if we're going to continue this uptrend, right? So there we might be potentially locking in the high of the week. And you can see Friday's close, this was indeed the high of the week. Okay. Now here we're looking at oil. What a chart, right? What a chart. Okay. And now we're just looking at the same things, right? We can see that from here, the previous week, we've been going higher and we have put in a lower low here. All right. That's why we don't want to predict anything. We want to see it happen. Okay. So it's the same sort of deal. We have Wednesday and Thursday that put in these equal highs. We fail to make another higher high on Thursday, right? And we have that lower low, that middle structure of the M formation, right? And then even on this day, if we zoom in, we can see, okay, we have lower lows on the inside right here for the pump and dump, okay? We go bam, right here. As soon as that breaks, and we're gonna zoom in, uh, on gold and really look on the day, right? But when we're looking at the week, as soon as we break through this level, we know, okay, we might be locking in the high of the week. Now here we're looking at the NASDAQ, all right? And I'm telling you, bro, I'm telling you, that's a crazy move, right? What is that, like 1,000 pips or something, bro? Now, this slide, I'm trying to show you a couple of things, all right? Um, so it's the same deal here. We're making higher highs at each of these days, right? Higher than Friday, higher than Monday, higher than Wednesday, all right? And then Thursday, Friday is where we get our failed attempt at putting in a new higher high. We have our middle structure of this large M formation. Okay, that's our lower low on the inside. Right when we break through that lower low on the inside, we might be saying to ourselves, all right, we might be locking in the high of the week. All right. Now, something else I'm trying to show you here. I've marked off this level. This is sort of like the origin for this macro pump and dump. All right. This is our anchor point. Now, what I'm trying to show you is something that Stacy always shows us. You see all of this empty space down here. This is like we're building the house, okay? This is our floor. And we're building the house or building the castle, right? As Sniper might say, right? And we have all this space, this open space down here, all of this money sitting below these levels. Okay. And you can kind of be on the lookout for this open space that we're uh, building up here. We're holding volume up high. Bam, take everybody out. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people made a lot of money on that chart. All right. Now we're getting in a little closer. We're going to look at this session, all right? Because the same thing applies when we're looking at the highs and the lows and figuring out if they're locked in, right? Every session has a high and a low. They might not be very clearly defined peak formations, but every session indeed has a high and a low, right? And some of them will be more clear than others. So when we're looking at the session, we're looking for basically the same things, right? Asia session opens up here. We've been grinding up higher. Then we go sideways. Suddenly we put in a lower low on the inside here. Okay. We pump back up through this, put in a new high. So we're still making higher highs at this point. The high of the session has not been locked in place yet. Here, I've drawn this out so you can see what I'm looking at. We have this little spike down. That's a lower low on the inside on a micro scale. Okay. Everything is fractal in these markets. Okay. That's our middle structure of the M or the double top sort of pattern. This can be a reversal pattern. All right. And then as soon as we break that level, as soon as we break that lower low, we might be saying to ourselves, okay, the high of the session is being locked in place. Right. And then again, down here, we have this spike down. We come up, we put in a higher high on the inside here because it goes higher than this little level right here. So that's potentially the middle structure for a W pattern. Okay. Then we come down, we fail to make a low, we fail to come all the way back down here. We engulf, go higher, break that higher high on the inside. We might be saying to ourselves, okay, this low is locked in place. Now we're going the other way, right? Now for the final slide, we're looking at a 1 minute chart on gold, all right? So we can take a look at the daily high and low rather than the weekly high and low or the session high and low. Now we're going to look at the daily high and low. This is the same day. That's that same Asian session we just looked at on gold, okay? So we can see we have these higher highs, and these lines are showing you that these higher highs are being broken, right? Because all the way to the New York session, we're still putting in higher highs. We're not breaking this low. We're not breaking this low, okay? But we're breaking these highs on our way up. Excuse me. Now, time equals opportunity in the market, right? So if we're trading the New York session, we're actually trading the last session of the day or the session that closes the day. So if we are going to put in a peak high formation, it's got to happen in the New York session, right? It has to. If we're going to indeed reverse and go the other way, there's not enough time in the day for it just to keep going up and then do it again. I mean, it could lock it in way over here right at the close of the day, right? But we know that 80% of the time we're going to get those peak formations in a session window. Okay. So it's the same sort of deal. And you can see how we have this little M formation. We got that middle structure. As soon as we break that middle structure, we might be thinking to ourselves, okay, we might be locking in the high of the day, the high of the session, or whatever. Okay. Again, here's that space that we were talking about. We're building up space as we pump up, holding volume up here, getting people to buy, 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 buy. People are buying high up here. Then we break that little level right there. Bam. That's potentially the high being locked in place. If you wait, if you're feeling conservative, wait till this, the opening of the session, that low right there is broken through. That's an engulfment on a higher time frame, okay? Just a big engulfment locking in that high. Engulfments, that's what locks in the high, right? When we're going one direction, then we start breaking levels to the other direction. That's how we lock in the high of the day or the low of the day, okay? Is by starting to trade the opposite way, right? We have to go up, lock in the high before we start a downtrend or before we start that big down movement, just like this, right? So just to recap and make sure that we're clearly stating what we're trying to get to, okay? We're making higher highs the whole day. Okay, so the high has not been locked in place yet. If we are going to lock in a high of the day in the session, okay, it needs to happen in this session. We need to see it happen. So there's a time constraint on this price action occurring. Okay. And remember, we're not trying to predict when it happens. We want to see it happen. So when we see that M put in place, we start breaking these levels, we start breaking these lows, which is out of character for what's going on for most of the day, right? Now we're saying to ourselves, okay, we've locked it in. It's not locked in until we break a level, right, to the opposite direction. You understand what I'm saying? So I hope that that clears out. I hope it gives you at least a little bit of help there. And again, I suggest you go watch the Stacy Burke playlist that is titled Mastering Peak Formations, right? We'll keep going over this stuff in future videos, man. But until next time, I hope you continue to free your mind.